Today we're going to break down one of the most important energy stories happening right now, China's incredible strategy to basically wall itself off from global energy shocks. And trust me, this is about way more than just going green. This is about pure geopolitics, and it is completely redrawing the world's energy map. Let's dive in.
So this is really the big question we have to ask. I mean, with all the instability we're seeing in the Strait of Hormuz, pretty much every country that imports energy is feeling the heat. But for China, which is the world's biggest oil importer, this isn't just another crisis. No, this might be the final push for a strategic pivot that's been in the works for years. And the numbers, well, the numbers show something truly extraordinary is happening. And that pivot, it all starts with what you can only call a super sprint towards electrification. The scale and the speed here, honestly, it's unlike anything we have ever seen before. Let's just look at the raw data.
Okay, just let this number sink in for a second. 446 gigawatts. That is the amount of new renewable capacity, we're talking mostly wind and solar, that China put on the grid in 2025, just 1 year. To give you some perspective, that is more than the rest of the entire world combined.
And all that new capacity brings China's total to an absolutely staggering 1.4 terawatts. So what does that mean? It means we're talking about roughly 1/3 of the entire planet's renewable energy infrastructure is now located inside China's borders. It's just massive. And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, look at the difference here. This isn't just a small lead, it is a total breakaway. China isn't just part of the global energy transition anymore. When you look at the sheer volume, it's basically driving the whole thing for everyone. Now, all of this construction has already triggered a massive structural shift in their energy system. As you can see, back in 2024, renewables officially jumped ahead of oil to become the country's #2 energy source, right behind coal. This is a huge tipping point.
And you know, it's not just about making electricity. It's also about what's using it. In 2025, sales of electric vehicles crossed the 50% mark for all new cars. And you gotta remember, every single EV that hits the road replaces a gasoline car, which directly eats away at the demand for oil and reduces their dependence on those shaky foreign supply lines.
So the story seems pretty straightforward, right? A nice, clean switch from oil to renewables. But from a security perspective, which is how we need to look at this, the reality is a whole lot more complicated. And honestly, it's way more interesting. There's a paradox right at the heart of China's strategy.
And here it is. This is the puzzle. At the exact same time that China is shattering every record for renewable energy, it's also hitting all-time highs in coal production and greenlighting tons of new coal-fired power plants. So what on earth is going on? Why would you build both at the same time?
Well, the answer comes down to one word: security. You see, Beijing learned a very painful lesson during the power shortages back in 2021 and 2022. When extreme weather came through, renewable output from their dams and wind farms just plummeted, and the lights went out. And what was the only thing that could fill that gap? Coal. So this new coal isn't for everyday power, it's a giant national insurance policy to make sure the grid stays stable while renewables take over the main job. And that right there, that brings us to the real heart of this whole thing. The moment you stop looking at this as an environmental plan and you start seeing it as a national security strategy, well, the paradox just vanishes, and the real goal becomes perfectly clear.
This is the key takeaway, right here. The real fight in China's energy policy isn't about green versus dirty. It's about domestic versus foreign. It's about maximizing what China can control, its own sun, its own wind, and even its own coal, against what it can't, imported oil.
And listen, this isn't just some analyst's hot take. This directive comes from the absolute top. All the way back in 2021, Xi Jinping said very clearly that China must take its energy supply matters into its own hands. That wasn't just talk, it was the mission statement for the exact strategy we're seeing unfold today.
So what this all boils down to is a single clear objective: energy self-sufficiency. The whole game is to use everything they can produce at home to get rid of every single barrel of oil that has to be shipped across thousands of miles of very vulnerable ocean. So, has it worked? What are the actual results of this security-first strategy? Well, the impact on China's energy mix is already very real, and the direction this is all heading is just undeniable.
Just look at the numbers. Only 5 years ago, oil was more than 20% of China's total energy use. Today, it's already down to 18.2%. And according to their latest 5-year plan, the goal is to shove it below 15% by 2030. You can bet that every single percentage point drop is seen as a major strategic win. This chart really shows you the new energy reality in China. Coal is still that foundation, providing the stable power and the backup. Renewables are the huge new engine of growth. And oil? Well, oil is that shrinking piece of the pie that Beijing is systematically trying to squeeze right out of the system.
And here's the ultimate strategic payoff. As oil's share of the total energy picture gets smaller and smaller, China's vulnerability to a supply shock, like say a complete shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, it fundamentally changes. An event that used to be absolutely catastrophic, now it's just manageable. And believe me, that is a massive shift in the global balance of power.
So to circle all the way back to our first question, the main thing to understand is this. The current crisis in the Middle East didn't create this trend, not at all. The wheels were already turning. What the crisis is doing, though, is giving them the ultimate justification and dramatically hitting the accelerator. Every single day of geopolitical chaos just proves to Beijing that they made the right bet.
So in the end, what we're really watching here is a masterclass in grand strategy. China is taking this moment of global chaos not as a crisis to just get through, but as a golden opportunity for strategic acceleration. And that, right there, makes this probably the most important energy story of the decade. Thanks for tuning in.